On a Thursday morning like any other in our family life, I was busy preparing breakfast and taking our two children to school. As usual, I took care of everything around the house, while my wife Claire went to work at a small marketing company in the city centre. Our life was a bit busy but also quite peaceful. The pace of life seemed to flow smoothly, although there were times when we were tired from work and family life. Then at 7:30 that morning, while I was rushing about with my work, the phone suddenly rang, making me stop for a moment and wonder who would be calling at this hour. The information on the phone screen surprised me even more because it was an unfamiliar code that I had never received before. Curiosity arose and I decided to answer the phone, although I was still wondering. I put the phone to my ear and listened. Unlike the work or friend calls I was used to, Claire's voice came from the other end of the line. I was surprised, since we had just talked last night. She said that there was an important matter that needed to be resolved immediately and asked me to cancel my credit cards immediately. Of course, I've already told Joy, my boss, about this, and she'll have new cards sent overnight so I can use them when I go on a business trip tomorrow, Claire said, in a worried voice. She explained that when she went down to the hotel lobby to get the newspaper, she accidentally left her wallet at the checkout counter, and when she came back, it was gone. Can you help me cancel my credit cards right away and remember to request new ones to avoid losing money? Claire continued. Her voice sounded a bit tense, as if she was very worried about this incident. I couldn't help but wonder why this was happening. Claire, who was very careful with her personal belongings, had left her wallet in a public place. However, instead of reacting too harshly, I tried to stay calm and asked gently, "How could you leave your wallet at the counter without remembering to take it?" She hesitated for a moment, and then replied, "I think it was just an oversight, nothing too big, but it's just that cancelling the card is very important because I have to use the company card." In response, I promised to cancel the card immediately and request new cards. Although the story seemed like a normal incident, I couldn't help but feel that something was wrong. Claire was very careful and rarely made mistakes like this. Was this a sign of a bigger problem in our lives? Was she hiding something from me, something that I couldn't figure out yet? This question kept lingering in my mind for the rest of the day. Ever since I discovered the suspicious signs in my wife's account, I couldn't help but feel confused and worried. The story began when I accidentally discovered a statement from Claire's investment account, where she managed some of her inheritance from her parents. Although I had always respected her privacy and never inquired about her personal investments, this time I couldn't help but feel curious when I saw a financial statement. The statement showed that her account had been growing steadily and had now surpassed $400,000, a dream amount. But what caught my attention the most was a $3,000 withdrawal made right after the incident of losing her wallet at the hotel. I couldn't help but wonder why she would use such a large amount of money for something I didn't know about. I continued digging into Claire's account and quickly discovered that she had written a check for $3,000 to a local jewelry store. This made me even more suspicious. She had never mentioned buying jewelry, and I couldn't understand why she would spend such a large sum of money on something I had never heard of. Even if Claire had a brother, I couldn't understand why he would need a $3,000 gift from her. Determined to get to the bottom of the matter, I decided to contact the jewelry store to find out more. When I called the store, a female employee answered and began asking about the issue I wanted to clarify. After providing information about the transaction, I received a shocking answer. The store employee confirmed that Claire had come into the store very worried and asked to replace her wedding and engagement rings as they had been lost. What puzzled me was that Claire never mentioned the loss of her wedding rings. She only talked about her wallet, not about the loss of such valuables. The store accepted the use of her company credit card as a guarantee, and Claire then paid the check. The more I looked into it, the more suspicious I became. If she had really lost the rings, why didn't she report it immediately and file an insurance claim? Surely I would have known if she had reported the rings, since they were a very special gift that I had given her on our 10th wedding anniversary. And why didn't she tell me about the purchase of replacement rings instead, choosing a jewelry store that I had never heard of? She had tried to hide this all this time, and this opacity made me suspicious. As I searched for information about the hotel where Claire had stayed, I continued to run into situations that made me uncomfortable. The hotel report showed that Claire had written a report about the loss of her wallet, but there was a strange detail that she did not want to report it to the police. This lack of transparency made me even more worried about what she might be hiding. She told a story about the loss of her wallet, but did not mention the loss of her ring. This secrecy made me feel like I was being seriously deceived. As time went on, I began to feel that this was not simply an accident due to negligence. There was something bigger going on, and Claire was trying to hide it. These thoughts made me re-examine everything in our lives, and I couldn't help but wonder if my wife was cheating on me during her business trips. This not only affected our relationship as husband and wife, but also our trust and responsibility in the family, especially for the 2 children we raised together. I decided that in order to find out clearly, I needed to check these details meticulously, leaving nothing to chance. The doubts grew, and I knew that I could not continue living in a relationship without transparency and honesty. The biggest question now was whether I had the courage to face the truth when it was revealed. I couldn't admit to myself that I was tormented by doubts about my wife. These past few days, while we were still trying to maintain the appearance of a normal, happy family, I felt the unspoken questions echoing in my head. My wife, Claire, had always been someone I trusted, someone I thought would never betray me. But everything started to change when I accidentally discovered suspicious details in her account. A large amount of money had been withdrawn from Claire's personal account, an amount she had not mentioned before, which only made me more confused. Yes, I found the statement from her investment account, and that's where it all started. A withdrawal of $3,000. What was it for? She had never mentioned shopping, and I couldn't imagine what she could spend such a large amount of money on. The feeling of anxiety grew, and as I decided to investigate, I got deeper into the unusual situation. After calling the jewelry store and discovering a shady story, all my suspicions were confirmed. My wife, Claire, went to the jewelry store right after losing her wallet and asked to replace the wedding ring and engagement ring that she said were missing. But there was one strange detail that she didn't mention. She didn't report the loss of the wedding ring. She just said that her wallet was missing, not mentioning that important item. This made me feel deceived. She decided to replace the precious items that I had given her, but without any explanation. Really, why was there this secrecy, and why didn't she tell me? A wave of confusion rolled over me. The information from the jewelry store made me even more worried. Claire not only lost her wedding rings, but also brought them to the store for replacement without reporting the incident in a transparent manner. And then, somewhere in the conversation with the jewelry store, a special detail emerged. Claire not only lost her rings, but also brought another engagement ring into the store. And more importantly, she was not wearing her wedding ring at the time. This was something I could not ignore. Something was going on, but I could not figure out why. That night, when I was home, my heart felt like it was breaking into pieces. I watched Claire prepare to go on a business trip, her face as calm as ever. But in my eyes, suspicion kept appearing. She always talked about business trips as part of her job, but now I could not help but feel that something was fishy. The contradiction between Claire's words and actions only made me more confused. Finally, I decided to find out the truth. I hired a private investigator to follow her on her next business trip. From that moment on, I no longer thought about saving the relationship. I wanted to know the truth, no matter how painful it was. This marriage was no longer what I wanted. And when I received the report from the investigator, what I saw shocked me. A photo of her kissing another man while the wedding ring I had given her was missing. Now the truth was clear. Claire had betrayed me, and I couldn't accept it. The anger inside me was like a tidal wave, but I couldn't let that anger control my life. I had to do something to regain control. Whatever it took, I had to face the truth and make a decision for myself and my children. Since I discovered the truth, everything in my life has changed completely. The feeling of betrayal and confusion rose in my heart like an uncontrollable storm. Claire, the wife I thought would accompany me for the rest of my life, had secretly set out on another path, a path full of lies and sins that I could not have imagined. The story of the ring, the wedding ring that I gave her on the most important day of our lives, was now only a symbol of deception, an indelible evidence of betrayal. When the detective sent me the report, I could not believe my eyes. The photos of Claire without her wedding ring, hugging and kissing another man at a fancy restaurant, and then returning to the hotel room with him, all were clearly and irrefutably recorded. The pain was indescribable, not because I still loved her, but because this truth shattered everything I believed in, everything I had built over the past 11 years. Of course, the children would never fully understand this pain, but I could no longer live in a lie. My patience was exhausted. I could no longer stand by and watch her continue to live like this. This marriage was no longer viable, and I realized that I had to act. I needed to protect myself, protect my children. Our relationship was no longer one of respect and love. Claire had chosen to betray me, and now it was time for me to stand up, to protect what I had, to take back control of my own life. After receiving the report from the detective, I immediately went to see a lawyer to prepare everything. I didn't just want a divorce. I wanted to show her that she would face the consequences of her actions. I wanted her to understand that betraying me was not just a simple mistake, but a decision that hurt the people around her, that broke up an entire family. The divorce was no longer my personal business. I needed to protect our children from a mother I no longer trusted. When Claire entered the lawyer's office to sign the divorce papers, I looked at her without any pity. She looked at me with red eyes, probably realizing that there was nothing left to save, but I felt nothing but coldness. What had she done to me? What had she done to our family? Regret and tears would not change the truth. It was not a single shock to me, but a lie that had been hidden for too long. Even though Claire asked to talk, even though she tried to show remorse and wanted to come back, I knew that once trust was lost, there would never be a chance to rebuild it. Her apologies were meaningless. Every time she said she loved me, every time she cried and asked for my forgiveness, I felt nothing but lies. She was no longer worthy of the love and trust I had given her over the years. At that moment, I decided not to go back to her, never. I would not allow betrayal to rule my life. No way, never. Our relationship was over, but behind all that pain, I felt something else. Freedom. Freedom that I had never felt before. The freedom to start over, to build a new future, free from the ghosts of lies and betrayal. After discovering the truth about my wife's relationship with someone else, the mixed emotions inside me made every decision heavier than ever. However, after understanding everything and preparing for the next steps, I knew that the most important thing right now was to protect my children. The betrayal I had to face not only broke up a family, but also made me think about the care and upbringing of my children. I knew that at this time it was not only me who needed to shoulder the responsibility, but also the children, innocent creatures who were living in an environment where love and trust had been broken. When I got divorced, it was not only an end to the relationship between Claire and me, but also an important turning point in rebuilding life for myself and my children. Although the emotional pain was inevitable, I had to face the fact that I needed to take drastic measures to ensure the stability of my family, especially in terms of finances and child custody. In fact, Claire may have had family support and other financial resources, but for me, the children always came first. That is why I decided to go down the path of separation and maintain custody. I spoke to a lawyer and was advised that I had custody of the children because I was the primary caregiver. However, I was worried about how Claire would react once she knew that she was losing custody. It would not be easy, especially since she would try everything to restore the relationship and get custody. However, I could not allow that to happen. Despite being my wife for so many years, Claire has betrayed me, and the trust I placed in her has been severely eroded. That cannot be changed. With each decision I make, I become more aware of my goal, to ensure that my children will have a stable future and not be affected by the turmoil in their parents' lives. I want to create a healthy and loving environment, a place where my children can grow up without having to endure the betrayals and lies of adults. Although Claire is a good mother, I cannot ignore the fact that she has not fulfilled her responsibilities in our relationship, and that makes me unable to entrust my children to her. With each passing day, I feel more and more burdened by this decision, but I also understand that the most important thing is to protect my family. My children deserve a life free from lies, where they can feel loved and cared for. That is why I decided to maintain custody of them, even though my personal life was turned upside down. Claire's betrayal was a deep wound, but I will not let it affect my children. I will fight to protect them so that they can grow up in a truly happy and peaceful environment. When I realized that everything I believed about my wife was a lie, Claire's betrayal became a tidal wave that swept away everything I had built. All the questions, all the doubts were no longer just idle thoughts, but tearful truths. Every little detail, every harmless phone call suddenly became a piece of a picture that I could not deny. Claire, the person I had loved and trusted for so many years, now made me feel like a fool, a cheater in my own home. All I can say is that this betrayal was an incomparable shock. She was once a loving wife, a wonderful mother to our 2 children, yet she was able to hide such a terrible secret behind that perfect facade. Every time I thought about the warm family moments before, her smiles, I felt as if I had been cut off from everything. How can someone push the person they love to the brink of a breakup and still sleep soundly at night? How can she continue to live happily with dark secrets while I am dragged into a quagmire of suspicion and anger? I began to search for signs, for hard evidence to expose the truth of what Claire had done. And when I found undeniable evidence, I couldn't help but feel indignant. The price of this betrayal was too great. How could I look into the eyes of my children without feeling guilty, without feeling helpless about all that had happened? Could I continue to nurture love in a house whose foundations were cracked? The feeling of being deceived and humiliated haunted me. I found myself at a crossroads, not knowing what to do, how to react. I couldn't live forever torn apart, with questions without answers. My next decision was to face the truth, no matter how painful it was. At that moment, I realized that forgiveness was not something I could give her, no matter how hard she tried to hold on. I could no longer live in a relationship where trust was broken, where every day became a challenge, a struggle to find peace of mind. My decision was to end everything, so that this truth would no longer affect me nor my children, so that she, if she really wanted to, could find her own way, and I would start over in a new life without the shadow of betrayal.